Hi there guys, in this video we're going to have a look at algebraic fractions. Now you may think I've gone a bit crazy here because that's not an algebraic fraction, but I haven't. Because that's a fraction you should be pretty comfortable with solving. Move this thing, maybe you can't see that, but it's annoying me. But what we might have is something under here. So let's just pretend I didn't do that for a minute. You'd normally be thinking x's on one side, numbers on the other. And that's exactly how you have to think, but once you've dealt with this part here. So we want it to be like the blue section without the black denominator. So what we're going to do is, this 3 is upsetting us. So to get rid of a divide by 3, we times by 3. And what that's going to do is cancel them out. But we need to do that to both sides. Now, well, I've also got this divide by 2 that's annoying me. So I can times by 2 to both sides. It would cancel out on the left. It would be left here on the right. So what's that going to look like? Well, it's 3 of the blue bit on the left. So there's 3 of the 3x's, so I have 9x's, and 3 of the 5's, so I have 15. And on the right hand side, we've got 2 lots of everything in blue, so we've got 4x's and we've got 6. So what we can do, I'm just going to quickly change colour, is we call this like cross multiply, so just times in diagonals. Now we get x's on one side, so there's the most x's on the left hand side, so it makes sense to keep them all there. And let's remove the numbers from the left hand side, subtract 15 to both sides. Non-friendly numbers, we don't mind that, do we? Negative divided by positive, and there we have it. Let's have a look. You see, this one is slightly trickier because we've got this on the bottom, like x plus 3 on the bottom and x plus 1. So we can cross multiply. I don't like thinking about things like that because that's just a little trick. So what we can do is we can times by x plus 3 to both sides. If I times by x plus 3, I'm going to put that in brackets so it makes everything look easier. Well, what's going to happen is I'm going to remove it because on the right hand side it was being divided by x plus 3. But what I must remember to do is times by x plus 3 on the other side as well. Because it's an equation, what I do to one side, I must do to the other. Okay, well, I've dealt with this ugly part on the right hand side, but on the left hand side we've also got this x plus 1. So I'm going to times by x plus 1 also, which means they will cancel, but I'll have it appearing on the right hand side. So I have 3 times the bracket, so 3 lots of x plus 3, well, that's going to be 3x plus 9. And 2 lots of this new bracket on the right hand side, so it's going to be 2x plus 2. Okay, so now we're back to a very basic two-step equation. X is on one side, so subtract 2x from both sides, subtract 9 from both sides, and there we have it. So it looks far more confusing when you've got the unknowns as a denominator, but it's exactly the same. Let's have a look. So this time we've gone back to the earlier stage, but now they're both on one side, which definitely makes it trickier, and we are given something else on the right hand side. So just to remind you, we asked to solve this. That means find this unknown variable, find the quantity of it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and subtract these fractions. Now, if you think of doing something like this, 5 over 6 take away 1 over 6, you just subtract the tops. That's what we're going to do, and it's just a little more complicated version. If I had 5/3 take away 1/6, that's more complex. I have to get the denominators to be the same, so I would write that as 10 over 6. Okay. So sometimes I have to change both, but this instance I'm only going to change one, and I'll just rewrite this one. Okay. So what have I done? Well, I've had to times everything on the left fraction by 2, so I'm going to get 8x plus 2. Now, this is really tricky because this negative in here in the middle, this is what's going to cause a lot of problems, especially when there's a negative here. So this causes lots of problems for us because we're going to merge these into one. right hand side. But what we actually have is, let's just change color here. We have 8x minus 2x, no problem, 6x. The problem comes here. We've got 2 take away minus 3, which is plus 2 add 3 essentially. That's where a lot of people are going to go wrong. They don't look at the sign in the middle, they just look at the like terms. Now, sometimes what I like to do, just to make sure I don't make this mistake, is I'll put a bracket there so it reminds me I'm doing this bracket, take away that bracket. Another way, I think the next one's going to be a bit harder, so I'll show you what I'd normally do, but when you're not timesing both, it's actually a bit harder, I think. So what am I going to do now? I'm going to get rid of this dividing by 6 by timesing by 6 to both sides. So I end up with 6x plus 5 equals 12. Whatever you do, make sure you don't times this 6x and 5 by 6 as well, because then you're technically timesing that left-hand side by 36, and you don't want to do that. X's are already on one side, so let's just put the numbers on the other, and go ahead and divide by 6. Let's look at a more challenging. Okay, so it's exactly the same as the previous one. However, we've got a more complicated denominator. So we have to make them the same, and the easiest way of doing that is multiplying this one, the one on the left, by 2x plus 3, and the one on the right by x minus 1. So if I do that, if I want to make x minus 1 2x plus 3, what I have to do is have to times the top by 2x plus 3, and you'll see I could cancel those 2x plus 3 brackets out by dividing top and bottom by 2x plus 3, and I'd get back to the question, so I know I haven't made a mistake, which is really important. And I'd have to do the same for this one. But I'm not going to do anything to the right hand side because I'm not actually changing the left. This one here and this one here are equivalent. If I cancel out, I get the same. So they're not getting bigger, they're not getting smaller. So I'm not upsetting or breaking any math laws here. Now, I'm going to make them a common denominator. But what too many people do wrong here is they expand the tops, and it creates that problem I was just talking about in the previous slide. So what I like to do is just rewrite, and in fact, I would actually skip the previous step out. Once you're comfortable getting to here, you'll notice that you can just pop that one up there, and you can write it all on one line. It's like the cross multiplying, but slightly differently. That's why I don't like those tricks too much. Now I'm going to expand because I'm less likely to mess up my negatives when it's written like this. So I get 6x plus 9 minus 5x plus 5. Remember, minus times a minus is a positive. This is going to be 2x squared, and I'm going to do my outers and my inners at the same time. So I'd have 3x for my outers, my inners would be minus 2x. So that's plus 1x minus 3 for the last term. And I have to just get rid of that denominator, so I'm going to times both sides by it. And at the same time, I'm going to tidy up the top. So I've got x plus 14 on my left-hand side. So two lots of this denominator, I have 4x squared plus 2x minus 6. Crikey! Now I've got a quadratic equation. So when it's quadratic, because I have this power here, its leading power, is 2, so it's quadratic. Everything has to be on one side. So I need to get rid of the x from the left-hand side, so that leaves me with 1x on the right. And I need to get rid of this plus 14 on the left, so I'm going to minus 14, and that gives me 20. Okay. So from here, this one, don't believe factorizes. No, it doesn't. So I could complete the square. It's pretty horrible when you have this situation. So I'm going to use the quadratic formula. I'm not actually going to go ahead and work this out now because that's another video. I'm sure we've done plenty of those. So I'll just show you what I would be writing down there. So negative b, b being 1, 1 is in front of the x, plus or minus, square root of b squared. Okay, so 1 squared is 1, minus 4 lots of a, 4, c, minus 20. Just make sure that square root symbol goes all the way across. Over 2a, I would tidy this up. So what's that? 16, 321. So square root of 321 all over 8. And now I'm going to leave you at this point, and you can type that into your calculator and get your two values of x. So stage 1, I've got 4 questions. Pause the video, have a go. When you're ready, move on. If you're really struggling, then maybe move on to just hit play and just have a look at the answers, cover them up, and then have another go. So here are the answers, guys. Shouldn't be any too tricky in there, so we'll have a look at the next stage. So in stage 2, we have the equal sign, but there's still just the numbers on the bottom, so it's still quite straightforward. It gets harder when we put the letters on the bottom. So have a go at these as well. Pause the video. When you're ready, hit play. So here are the answers. Now, this one, number 3, just be really careful here. That's why I've changed the color, that you've got your plus 10. If you weren't following my advice and writing it all in one line, you may have put a minus 10 there, for example. And don't worry if your working looks ever so slightly different to mine. I've skipped a few steps, and you can do that too as you get more comfortable. For the one number 4, you may have gone for 18. Just check your final answer, or redo it with like I've done. But with 6 and 3, like one of the examples, it's definitely easier to use 6 as the common denominator rather than 18. Less multiplication is needed. It's time for stage 3. So again, this is when it's tough, but pause the video. Don't skip any of these. Do every single one. And when you're ready, hit play. Here are the answers. Now, sorry if that's a bit small. I'm pretty sure you can read them all. And you can see on question 1, it didn't factorize, so I've completed the square. I haven't finished it off, but that actually is an exact answer. I love that answer. This one, I didn't even tidy it up because I didn't have my calculator handy. But if you got there, keep going, and you get 2 answers. But thankfully, 3, 4, 5, and 6, they all factorise, much nicer questions. So yeah, hope that went well. Now, it's time for a super mega learner question. So pause the video. I'm going to work through this one with you, and let's see how we go. So I'm kind of wishing I didn't write it right in the middle, so I'm going to run out of space. But the secret is here, this is not being factorised. You have to factorise. This is dots. Square term, take away a square term, it's always dots. So I'm just going to rewrite this. Now, well, looking at these denominators, if I times all of these together, I'm going to get a cubic. And if you're watching this at GCSE level, you don't know how to solve a cubic equation. There is a formula, it's pretty disgusting, so we don't tend to use it. So, excuse me, I'm going to avoid that and make the denominators the same. And I'm going to do that by multiplying this one by 2x minus 1. The one on the right, I'm not actually going to change, because by doing so, I have this as a denominator. So this denominator, you can see it's already there on the right-hand side. So I haven't changed the 1, but this one here, I've had to times this by 2x minus 1, and that will give me that denominator, and then I've combined them. So I'm sorry if I've taken a couple more steps than you like there, but you can do that. So I'm going to expand the top and collect all the like terms. So I've got 8x, then I've got minus 4, but I've got this plus 1 here. So I've got minus 3. I'm now going to expand this again, so back out to my dots. It's just going to make the multiplication on the next stage a lot easier. So now we're back to normal. So 8x minus 3 is going to be 12x squared minus 3. Everything on one side, so 12x squared minus 8x. I want to plus 3 to both sides, so that goes. Highest common factor here to both terms is actually 4x, so I can take that outside of a bracket and I can factorise. Leaving me, I'm going to just write up here because I'm getting too close to the end. So x is 0 because 4x has to be 0, so x is 0. And 3x minus 2 has to be 0, so x is equal to 2/3. Guys, super job if you got that right. That's a very hard question because if you don't know to factorise first, you're pretty stuck. Hope that makes sense. Have a go at the worksheets and best of luck.